more than a quarter of this film must be regarded as irretrievably lost. Few films have been so systematically changed, mutilated or corrupted as this one. Shots and titles have been omitted and changed. However, of no other such mistreated film do we know so well what the film originally looked like. Fritz Lang and Thea von Harbou, different sex Siamese twins, just like their film. The novel, Thea von Harbou's film, Behind, Under, Fritz Lang's. At this point, the music started during the first screening, the Metropolis theme. A fanfare motif. The orchestra follows. A column of sound emerges. Thea von Harbou's message, Lang didn't believe in it. He said, "I am fascinated by machines." Metropolis, the mother city, city of mothers, mother of all cities. The city, the film, they too are machines. Flywheels, a crankshaft, an eccentric disc, a machine without workers, devoid of function, pure movement, rotating, thrusting, a machine of desire. Round shapes and jerking movements become one in the image of two clocks. One 24-hour and one 10-hour clock. Day shift and night shift, 10 hours each, mark the Metropolis working day. Two groups of workers, uniformed in rows of 6, march in unison, the exhausted half as fast as the fresh. They moved their feet, but were not walking, reads the novel. The way people move or are moved is always highly significant throughout the film. The workers' theme, a funeral march. The night shift enters a cage. The grate is raised. The cage sinks, and with it the camera. A title picks up the movement. Even the titles the young Louis Buñuel wrote in his review of the film, how they rise and fall, blend with the movement as a whole, become pictures themselves. The title's movement is carried through to the movement of the picture. The workers, now just a painted silhouette rising in the background, the design of the underground workers' city. Elevators transport the workers up and down between the machine halls and their living quarters. A new musical theme, the theme of the city of the workers. the main square of the workers' city, simply a transit area for the workers returning to their quarters. In the center a gong, again a kind of alarm clock. The downward scroll of the title is answered by a rising, equilateral triangle pointing skywards. The sports stadium. The contrast is stark between its openness under sweeping skies and the cramped city of the workers. Just as stark as the contrast between the liberated and carefree movements of the youths, dressed in white, and the dull lethargy of the darkly clothed workers, and the self-determined horizontal movement versus the downward ride of the workers in the lift. A light-hearted waltz, no musical leitmotif accompanies this scene. An artificial grotto, columns like stalactites, young women in Rococo carnival costumes, Orient-inspired head adornments. The tricorn is of Venetian origin. In contrast to the straight course of the young men, the young women's animated turns, anti-clockwise, directed by a ringmaster, clockwise. A playground is the pleasure garden of the sons, an infantile idyll. Nature, sex, eroticism in chaste playfulness, like the water in the fountain, a transparent dome masking a statue of a siren. The youth in white breeches and the girl with the queue de Paris play hide-and-seek, their game a dance, a pas de deux. A scene highly charged with erotic allusion, yet so intensely innocent that we do not actually expect a real kiss. Instead, an expectant glance. Musically accompanied by a new theme. Let us call it the love theme. Answered by an apparition. Dressed in light grey, it reads in the screenplay, from the smallest of décolletés rises a head with solemn eyes and glowing blonde hair. The austere countenance of the Virgin, the sweet countenance of the Mother, reads the novel. The Mother without a man, Freder's dream. New to the music is the Freder theme. It describes him as a light-hearted, harmless soul, a pure fool. The subject of her glance is Freder, the brother, the son of Fredersen, the nothing more than a son. All names in Metropolis are steeped in meaning. Heralded by the clarinet, a new choral-based theme, which from now on will accompany the entrances of the young woman. A door closes. Communication is interrupted. This will be repeated at several decisive moments throughout the film, providing the impetus for further action on the part of its heroes. Nothing could help him, nothing, the novel states at this point. In a tortuous, ecstatic omnipresence stood before his eyes the vision, a countenance, the austere countenance of the Virgin, the sweet countenance of the Mother. Later, we learn that Freder lost his mother at birth. Freder runs. Where will Freder search for the Virgin, the Mother? Not in the workers' city as one would think. Freder arrives in a machine hall. In this film, we can never be sure whether what we see, what the characters see, actually represents reality or is an hallucination, a vision, a dream, which sometimes becomes a nightmare. Freder searches for a woman and finds a machine. In the novel, he now comes face to face with a machine of his own construction. He strokes it, feels its limbs, presses his face to its bulk. In the film, the machine is also a living organism. Freder in the novel, "Tonight I shall allow myself to be embraced by you, pour my life into you, and discover whether I can give you life." Blood pressure and temperature of the film machine rise. Perhaps I will feel your trembling and the sprouting of pulse in your rigid body. Perhaps I shall experience the intoxication with which you hurl yourself into your vast element, bearing me, the man who made you. But Freder also knows, Freder in the novel, nothing in this world is more vengeful than the jealousy of a machine that feels neglected. In the film, the machine is called the M machine. M as in mother, M as in Moloch. The Moloch theme, a threatening musical gesture. The film of the future is also a film of antiquity, a biblical film. Moloch, the god of the Ammonites, to whom the Israelites also sacrificed children, to the chagrin of Moses and his God. The film is littered with associations to the Old and New Testaments. In the music, the Moloch theme switches to the theme of the workers' city. Platoons of workers in rows of 6 march into the mouth of Moloch, which transforms back into the machine. A machine which produces nothing, which requires the tribute of the dead and injured, like the bloody battles of the war which occurred only 10 years before the film was made. Freder runs again. Towering structures, it says in the novel, packed together in blocks, tower up either side of the streets, more like mountain ranges than homes. Stone cliffs interspersed with glass and concrete buildings. Wide pavements rise above car-only streets, and long-distance trains, electrical express trains, intersect the streets. Aeroplanes hover, and in the background, the new Tower of Babel, towering above all. In the music, the Fredersen theme portrays him as a self-confident autocrat. Yo Fredersen, Yo with H, Jehovah. He is both monopolist and dictator. In Thomas Pynchon's novel, Gravity's Rainbow, Franz Pöckler, a kind of Werner von Braun, remembers the film, which he saw as a student in Berlin. Great movie. Exactly the world Pöckler and evidently quite a few others were dreaming about. A corporate city-state, in which technology was the source of power, and in which engineers worked closely with administrators, and ultimate power lay with a single leader at the top. No sooner had Freder entered this room, according to Thea's novel, than he was once again a boy of 10, nothing more than the son of this father. The music, the Moloch theme, tells us what Freder is speaking about. The gestures of the son, unlike those of the father, display trust, seek contact. Fredersen looks past him. His gaze rests on his secretary. Fredersen's glances are orders, as are his words, his gestures. Camera movements are rare in Metropolis and are always significant. Here the camera is guided by the movements of the actors. The pace of the discussion moves the camera, stops it, moves it on. First it progresses, then it pans with father and son. It is in the children, not the adults, that Freder recognizes his siblings. Himself as the infant prodigy of the Virgin, the motherly, a kind of infant Jesus. Fredersen is not only ruler, but also builder of Metropolis. His city, an architectural dream, a dazzling futuristic city, constructivist towering structures, as the urban crown of the new Tower of Babel. First from the strings, then the horns. Allegro alla marcia, the theme of the uprising begins. A video telephone on the wall behind. Fredersen's office is the control, communication and command center. His power is based on information. Above Fredersen, on the wall, the lower edge of the 10-hour clock is now visible. Fredersen's power lies in his ability to control the time of his subordinates. The worker, the capitalist, the clerk, the model of modern class society. The position of the seemingly privileged employee is, in fact, the most precarious. Again a door closes behind somebody. this person's disappearance motivating Freder to dedicate himself to this person. That people are consumed by the machines, explains the father to the son in the novel, does not prove that the machines are greedy, but rather portrays the defective material of the people themselves, in industry as well as in war. Again, Freder runs. For the father, the door closes behind him. Two rooms, two scenes, screened in parallel, interrelated, contrasting. The characters, too, one commenting on the other. Here the staircase. There Fredersen's office. This becomes one of the film's narrative techniques. Freder has followed Josaphat. Fredersen, on the other hand, summons the Slim One. Fredersen in right profile. The Slim One in left profile. Take note of just how differently Lang stages dialogue. Freder again heading downstairs, into the depths. And again in an act of viewing. Once again he is confronted with the spectacle of a machine. In the novel it is called the Pater Noster machine, so let's keep it so. It keeps the elevator system in the new Tower of Babel moving. In the film, it has no obvious function. It is purely metaphorical. An allegorical machine, if you like. The change of clothing manifests Freder's rebellion against the father. This is the beginning of the incarnation of the Son of Jehovah, his passion. This cut is, up to now, the most serious intervention carried out by the adapters. The critic Roland Schacht praised the missing sequence. Illusions similar to that of the Yoshiwara Pleasure Palace, which distract Georgi from fulfilling his task, have been used in French avant-garde films, but never to such tremendous synthetic characteristic effect as in this false, dazzling wax makeup way. In ancient times, reads the novel, a magician from the Orient built the house in 7 days. Then from a far distance came Rotwang, and, overcoming great resistance, took it for his own. The Rotwang musical theme is reminiscent of the Moloch music. Fredersen is the only person in Metropolis who respects Rotwang's genius. The removal of this figure is the gravest manipulation executed by the adapters. The Hel of the Nordic sagas was the ruler of the underworld, motherly goddess of death. In Hel, Rotwang has lost his lover. Fredersen his wife, Freder his mother. The loss inspires each of them in their actions. How Lang stages a dramatic dialogue. Fredersen in right profile. Rotwang frontal, eyes towards the camera. Both. Fredersen in right profile, Rotwang in left profile. The audience alternating, at times addressee, at times distant observer. Curtain up for Rotwang's first scene, the entry of the mechanical woman, the new Hel. On the wall, a pentagram, the magical symbol. The tip pointing downwards suggests the satanic. A metallic phallus with female physical attributes, with breasts, and on the abdomen, mounted and exhibited the genitalia. The music echoes the most important components of the mechanical woman theme. It comprises 3 motifs attributed to the various aspects of the being, and which at times appear separately, at times in unison. Rotwang's artificial limb is steel, steel from the steel of the creature to whom he sacrificed his hand. Another parallel scene. Freder still at the machine. Fredersen with Rotwang determines the next sequence. The plan. Fredersen's copy. And the one which Freder finds acts as the pivot between both strands of the plot. Rotwang's library, ancient tomes and a neon spiral lamp. Rotwang caught between Middle Ages and future. Fredersen, in contrast, with a chronometre movado on his wrist, is the epitome of 20s modernity. Freder's passion. The factory is his Golgotha, his cross the clock, the Father God's instrument of power. The omnipotent is not omniscient. Lack of information is the motivation for Fredersen's departure. For the first time, we see him physically in motion, moving from one scene to another. Fredersen and Rotwang descend from right to left. Left-right, the workers. Freder between them. Both groups heading towards the same scene. Freder, hand on heart again, the love theme from the garden scene in the background, sees a type of crypt, it states in the screenplay, with 8 or 10 tall rough crosses, but no crucifix. Countless niches in the walls, the bones and skulls of thousands of departed, barely visible in the shadows. A mixture of early Christian place of worship. Sienkiewicz's Quo Vadis had just been filmed with Emil Jannings, and Pagan Underworld is the place where Freder meets the Virgin, the Mother. Again, "Look at me, Virgin," his eyes prayed. It says in the novel, "Mother, look at me." Both strands of the plot intertwine in Rotwang's and Fredersen's glance down into the crypt. They do not recognize Freder in the scene. The preacher is reciting a screenplay. Which Freder turns into a film for us. The creative man, priest, ruler, architect. Accompanied by the music played during the opening credits of the film. What here looks like a mammoth construction in panoramic shot turns out to be a model, around which a group of architects has gathered. New to the music, the Tower of Babel theme. Five groups of workers, a metaphor like the fingers on a hand. End of the simile, the sermon. End of the projection. A look into the camera, into our eyes. The epigram. This is awarded its own musical motive. Thus we learn her name. In the novel, Freder asks, "What should I call you?" She answers, "Mary." He answers, "Only this can be your name." Allegro alla marcia, the theme of the uprising. Fredersen believes he has seen enough. What Rotwang sees, however, and wants to prevent Fredersen from seeing, because a new plan is germinating in his mind. A dialogue is opening. Freder's gaze is searching for Mary. His hand beckons her. He begins to speak. His eyes follow her. The camera assumes his gaze, which become one with her movements. Scans her gaze, sweeps her gaze directly into the camera, moving gently to him, unites both in the picture. The speaker always in semi-profile, the listener laterally from behind. An erotic dialogue, regardless of what the titles say. The love theme is playing. Now stops and is replaced by the Rotwang and Fredersen themes in accentuated variations. The couple is musically threatened by the theme of the uprising. Will Rotwang give up his project to recreate Hel? Or will he extend it, if it can be used to steal his rival's son from him? The son of Hel, who he himself had expected from her? Mary's light is candlelight, natural, soft like her. The realm of death, the realm of Hel. Is Freder's dead mother jealous of her son's love? Is this why she joins forces with her destroyer? Rotwang's lamp is a mechanical tool, like his steel hand, the entire man, a hybrid of man and machine. Lucifer, the bringer of light, is one of the evil one's names. He showed this scene to a Hollywood specialist, wrote Lang. This beam of light which impales the prey on a sharp needle, refuses to release it, driving it before him in relentless pursuit, onward into a state of abject panic, caused the mild-mannered American to confess naively, "We can't do this." They could do it, said Lang, they just did not think of it. And light and shadow should not only be used to convey a mood, but should also play a decisive role in the action. The Cathedral, a second piece of the Middle Ages in the heart of the city of the future. Mysticism, Gothic, grandeur, ceremony, incense, it says in the screenplay. In the centre of the scene, a column reaching towards the heavens, like the trunk of a palm. In the novel, the cathedral harbours a fanatical sect, the Gothics, who persistently offer Fredersen resistance. The adapters of the film reduced this strand of the plot even more. Again, a parallel action, which interferes in the current action, transforms it into a fantasia. The music in the cathedral scene, the Dies Irae, musical epitome for death and disaster. In the original version of the film, the musical leitmotif is intertwined with the memory of the penitential sermon of the monk at the cathedral. This is the longest piece to have been cut from the film. The story of Freder, the good boy, Rotwang, the sorcerer, and the abducted Mary gives Metropolis the air of a fairy tale in a particularly unambiguous way. Many fairy tales are based on the abduction of a person. The evil character captures or imprisons someone. He foists another person onto this person. He transforms the person into another, or presents another person as the captive, as Rotwang intends to do with Mary. The hero, searching for the object or person he is missing, reaches the place where the captive is being held.